In this one, we're going to do a teardown of a camcorder. We're looking for parts. In particular, I'm looking for a video drum so that I can fix another machine. I don't know if the part's going to be the same or not. We're going to find out when we get there. So let's start taking this thing apart. So this time we're going to harvest the video head drum out of this camcorder that the guide is missing from. So we're going to pull this one up completely apart. Remove all of the screws, get the head drum out, and then we can transplant that into another machine that needs one. So like the other one, we just take out all the screws, although this one will be tearing it down to a much greater extent, removing everything on this one because we need to get the chassis out. See that one there? The cover is broken. So this will probably be a two-part. I think this video here will just be the harvesting. I don't know. You'll have to wait till the end, I guess, to find out. But I think I'll probably do it as two parts. We'll take the drum out of this one. And then I'll do another separate video for the actual head replacement on the GVD 800. Because that one I think is worthy of a video by itself. It's quite the undertaking to do it. I hate taking these things apart. This is the hardest part, getting this piece open. Oh, might help if I take out the one screw. There's always one last screw, right? These have left a mess on my bench. The rubber from the hand grip that's deteriorating. And what else is there? I think that's it. Put this one over here. I got them all. Oh, one more. Okay, I can unplug this. Got to take the circuit board out on this. So we'll undo the plugs. All of them. Okay, lens out of the way. Now I can remove. See, this is one of the ones that they got smart with. I think I was talking about this before, but a lot of the earlier camcorders, the Firewire connector was part of the main board, and people would break the connector because they would buy monster cables. Here I am taking a shot at monster cable. They would buy monster cables, and monster cables are pretty heavy and they're stiff. And what would happen is, and this is what happened to a camera that I've got that was given to me. I have a DCR TRV, I think it's a 730. They'd have these heavy monster cables, Firewire plugged in. Monster weren't the only ones, but they were one of the more popular ones. And what would happen is the weight of the cable would break the connector. It's a little 4-pin connector. They'd break it on the circuit board, so then you had to replace the entire main board. And when the main board cost like half the price of the camera, people were, not happy. So what Sony did in the later years was they did this. They put the AV input-output on a separate board, so you could buy the board. This little board here was probably still, I think it was still like 60 or $70 for the board, but that's a lot cheaper than $500 for a main board. But the early ones, there was so many main boards that were damaged by people breaking that connector. That and the USB connector and HDMI connectors on cameras that had HDMI. People would break those connectors off like they were going out of style. I was like, alright, the circuit board should lift out. Oh, another plug down here. Undo that plug, and there should be another one on the back, I think. Yeah, this one. One more back here, undo that one. And here's the drum. So the drum just comes off with 3 screws. The problem is, with this whole mechanism in the way, I can't just lift it out. It won't come out. So I have to remove some more of the chassis to remove the drum. And this is why you change the entire drum on these Digital 8. You can't just change the upper drum like you can on 8mm or VHS, because as you can see, the drum is very well balanced. We put little ball bearings in here. It looks like there's one right there, and then there's another one somewhere else. I saw one. Maybe it was the same one. There's one right there. I guess it's just the one. Yeah, it's just the one. But on the top side, you can see that there are. Can you guys see that? I don't know if I was shooting it or not, but there's a little ball bearing here. Right there. It's used to balance it. On the top side, it's exactly the same. There's little ball bearings that they put in here, little weights. There's one there, and there's another one there, and I think that's it, just the two. But they had bigger holes for bigger little ball bearings. This is used to balance the drum because this thing spins so fast. So when you have to change the drum on one of these, you actually have to change the entire drum, and it comes as an entire assembly. It plugs in one plug here, and the other one was this one over here. Those are the two drum plugs. Plug into the board. What I don't know is what I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'll find out when I get this drum out and get the other camera or the other unit open, is whether these are the same. I've changed them before for one of my DV8, my GVD 800, the GVD 200 that this is going to go into, but I took a drum out of a camcorder which was a little older than this one. What I don't know is whether this is the same or whether it's not. I won't know until I get into the other one, but I got to get the part out of here first before I get the other one, get the other unit open. There's a mode switch down here on these, as you can see, which is another thing that can give trouble. That's why people should exercise their camcorders from time to time. Don't just leave them sit. If you're planning on using them, turn them on once in a blue moon and load a tape and unload it and so forth, because that's the best way to keep them from going bad. Okay, should be a couple screws on the chassis here. I remember the other camera, I said there's a... Oh, I can't get at it. There's where... Oh, this was ticking too. You hear it? When I turn it around? Oh, that was not doing it. But this is... Right here is where that tooth belt goes. And what happens is you get a bit of dirt. A little grain of sand or something gets in here, and then every time this turns around, it goes tick, 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 tick. The belt ticks. Won't hurt anything. But to get at it, to clean it, is, you know, you got to pull it all apart like this. And I'm not going to do it. Not worth it. Too much time to clean out a grain of sand, and it might not be a grain of sand. It might be a crack in that little white gear. They have a tendency to crack too. So as long as it works, I'll leave them alone. Should lift this whole chassis out if I have done it right. Let's see here. The whole chassis should come out here. I probably got to take this off as well. I think I do, because it's in the way. Let's see here. Will it lift out? There we go. Lift the chassis out just like that. Okay. Now I can see why nobody would change a guide on one of these things. The amount of work required to get at that guide that's broken and replace it. It's I don't know whether somebody took it out or whether it fell out. It almost looks like this is bent here, but it may have been the screw that held the guide in place may have fallen out on this. Anyway. There's certainly no guide in here that's missing. The whole thing's missing. I think this part of the block was missing too. I think somebody robbed that guide is what happened. I'm pretty sure. Either it fell out. I don't think so. I think that this, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the history of it, but the fellow that owns us may have bought it as a parts machine. I don't know. I guess I'll have to ask him. But anyway, that whole block, as you can see the white block here, there should be another one on this side that the guide went in, because what happens when the chassis pushes forward, this plastic piece, as the chassis goes in, this plastic piece matches up with this fixed piece, the same with on this side here. There should be another plastic white with the guide in it, and as it gets up to here, once the two pieces meet, then the guide arms move forward to push the guides up to their final location. But somebody's taken the guide out of this camera. See, that whole block is missing. That piece there. Somebody's taken this one out. So that's what happened there. These screws here are what hold the drum in place. So we'll remove, and these screws have springs on them. That's what holds the drum in place. And if you get a squeaking sound, like a high-pitched squeak, it's usually this little electrode there. And it gets picked up by the microphone as squeaking. You got to pull the camera all apart to clean that up. Okay, drum should lift out. There we go. There's our head drum right there. And I'll put the 3 screws back in it just for now. Whoops. Might be easier with the screwdriver. This is just so that they don't get lost, because I don't know whether I'll need to use these screws in the other chassis or not. Depends if the other screws are the same size. So there it is, the head drum for a digital 8. You'll notice, if we look closely, there's a little magnet right down here. There's a little magnet right there, and every time it passes by this coil as it's spinning, that's what detects where the head is. That's the they call the pulse generator. There'll be 3-phase coil on here, and there'll be Hall effect devices which will generate a frequency so that the servo knows how fast the drum is spinning. But then there's this little pulse generator here, a little magnet, and that little pickup coil there. So every time the head rotates, it produces a pulse, and that's what tells the servo where the heads are, what position they're in, so that it knows that head A is starting its track, and then it times it. So head A starts its track, it knows that halfway between one and the other, there's head B starting its track. That's how that works. Anyway, that's the teardown of this. I don't know if I'm going to put this back together yet or not, or I might just give it back to him in pieces. No, I'm not going to put it together right now. Maybe we'll put the other drum back in here and kind of stick it together. Not that it's going to do anything, but I think he's just going to keep this as a parts machine, so maybe just have the chassis apart and he's got it as spares. Anyway, that's it for this one. I said this was going to be a teardown for a transplant, so we're going to do it as 2 separate videos. So there's the head drum out. So I put that donor camera back together, and I had exactly 1 screw left over, and that screw goes right there. And what happened is when I put it together, I did not plug all of the ribbon cables back in. There was no point, because the camera's dead. It's not going to open, it's not going to close, the mechanism's jammed. So I didn't plug all the ribbons back in, and one of them ended up, the end of it sticking out down here, so I can't put that final screw in, or it will damage that ribbon cable, and well, you never know, this thing might be needed for parts down the road. So there we go, everything back but 1 screw left over. So there it is. Now I can clean up this mess left from this that's all falling apart. Look at this terrible rubber stuff. Look at that. Isn't that terrible? Yuck. Well, it's all over my fingers. Anyway, donor camera back together, head drum to go into the other machine in the next follow-up video. Thanks for watching.